I've been thinking about this for a couple of days is because of the pandemic, I would imagine a lot of production's been shut down for a period of time. That there's not as many movies, there's not as much content coming out. And this is, look, this pandemic is going to change every industry, and Hollywood is no exception. And so, what is your kind of idea about the future of the entertainment industry? How's it going to change? And by the way, I hear people talk, oh, things are never going to be the same. And I'm like, you know what? Who cares? That's okay. Let's make them better. Well, we don't want things to be the same. We want them to be better. So what do you see as the future of the entertainment industry post-pandemic?
Yeah, look, on one hand, yes, to answer your questions, productions, there's some overseas productions happening right now, but for the most part, the business is trying to find its footing, like a lot of other businesses right now.
Yeah.
On one hand, the streaming business is booming because everybody's staying home.
Yeah.
So the Netflix of the world, Disney Plus.
But eventually they're going to run out of shows. Netflix has started showing me Spanish and German TV series, and I think it's doing that because I've watched every other American.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right.
Yeah.
And the theatrical business is taking a huge hit, obviously, and a huge blow because of all this.
Yeah.
But I think it was smart. AMC and Universal made this deal where they closed the window from where you can't show a movie on streaming down to 17 days. So what I think's happening, or what I'm seeing happening,
which is a huge deal, by the way, right?
Yeah, it is.
That's a big deal. Matter of fact, when I was in Colorado this summer for a brief period of time, my next door neighbor was one of the executives at Cinemark, and he was on board meetings every morning on the back porch. I could hear him. Cinemark is in all sorts of trouble right now, but like a lot of leaders, he's not crying about it. He's trying to figure out how to solve the problem.
Yeah, look, I think, the way people are viewing content is already changing and going to change. I think the types of stories they're going to tell moving forward, you're going to see a lot more aspirational, inspirational, like the film we just did. And I think right now, what we're telling all our clients is like, this is a great opportunity to continue to develop your craft.
Yeah.
To develop. If you've got a script that's not that good, make it great. Or if you think it's great, make it amazing. It's also a great time to package projects with filmmakers or with talent. So there's a lot of actors reading scripts right now or packaging deals for television. But I think the business, Brian, is definitely on more of the business side and not the talent side. I think content will double because what's going to happen is the studios are now realizing that the model's broken. You know?
Yeah.
And they can't make these big tentpole movies anymore and spend the amount of P&A, which is print and advertising costs, that go behind these types of films where they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars sometimes on these huge tentpole releases. So I think what they're going to probably start doing is movies that maybe in the past would have merited more of a theatrical release probably won't.
Yeah.
You know? And they'll probably end up on PVOD or streaming, but you'll see a lot more content. And the challenge is there's a lot more content out there, right?
For sure. One of the problems I have every night is there's so much good stuff. What am I going to watch tonight? But before we go any further, and I'm sure you have the phrase for this, but what we're talking about right now for people who don't know is there used to be basically an agreement that when a new movie came out, it would not be streamed, or it would be in the movie theaters for a window of time before it was streamed. And that's since there's been a couple instances recently where that's changed.
That's correct.
And what's I forget the industry term for that, but
it's just your first run window, basically, is what it's called.
Like the theatrical window or something like that. And so now and I think Disney maybe released, was it Hamilton? They released first by streaming or something like that. But anyway, this is a major shift in at least the business model.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Mulan's a great example. It's coming out this weekend.
Yeah.
Mulan was going to be a huge.
Release. Yeah.
And they decided to now put it on Disney Plus, their new SVOD vertical. And that's a big movie, so that movie needs a lot of downloads. But I think that them financially, it probably makes a lot more sense. It's more mitigating the risk. It's more calculated. Whereas imagine making a movie for $200 million and putting another $200 million in P&A behind it. You're into it for $400,000. If you're splitting the revenues with the exhibitors, meaning the theaters, the thing's going to make $800 million just to break even.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So now I see that as a very disruptive opportunity to make a lot more content, films that don't necessarily need to be in theaters. I think what also is happening is I think a lot of these studios are realizing they have to fish in other ponds,
Yeah.
and inclusivity is becoming very important, obviously, and reaching those targeted audiences. If you look at, I'm just going to use my demo because I know it. The Latino demo is, if you look at just California, Texas, and Florida alone, you can reach, that's the majority of Latinos in the United States.
Yeah.
And so they can target them and not have to spend a lot of money and reach them in very effective ways. And so that's the shift that I'm seeing that I think is the really good thing. And truth be told, I think we needed to hit reset out here.
Yeah.
Like I said, the model was broken, and just how people are viewing content has certainly changed how we're making content.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think it needed to happen, frankly.
And it's amazing what you just said. I could not agree with you more. You said the model needed to change. And in some ways, I think that, again, there's nothing positive about the pandemic. Let's be honest with it. But we can take some lessons from it. And one of the things I think we can take is, look, it's not just Hollywood. There's all sorts of businesses. There's all sorts of things we've been doing. And it's like a way to say, hey, time out. Let's reevaluate whether this model is the right model or not. Like, and a perfect example of that is the school systems. Hey,
Right.
Time out. Does everybody in the entire world have to go to college nowadays? Of course you don't. You can learn basically everything you want to learn online. Right. But then, of course, college has a very important role to play, and high school does too. But the point is this pandemic, if we look at it in a certain way, can give us teaching points, and we can make things better as a result of this.
That's how I feel. I certainly, look, two things. Obviously, it makes you appreciate your loved ones, right, a lot more.
For sure.
And take the time to connect with them and be closer to them and tell them you love them. But beyond that, I think it's, like I said, I think it's a really disruptive environment.
Yeah.
And we've had to evaluate our business today. How are we going to pivot in an effective way? And it's been good for us.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of team meetings and talked about how we're going to change things moving forward. And we're doing really well because of it, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm glad, again, not to sound callous about all the poor people dying in the world. I'm not glad that's happening right now.
Of course not.
But I am glad that things are changing in my business and that we had to make a shift and pivot. And I think that's part of running a business, is knowing when to shift and not being scared to shift sometimes and pivot and try things differently and to inspire your team to go along with that change as well.
And the thing about it is, I've been saying since the very beginning of the pandemic, and I feel like I'm like a broken record player almost, because I've been telling my kids this constantly and other people that I talk to, you got to be mentally flexible because things are in disarray everywhere right now. And there's basically two ways to look at that. Like you said, you can be nervous and afraid and things are in disarray and you can be anxious all the time, or you could look at it as this is an opportunity. This is the time now to strike. This is the time to invest in your skills. This is the time to figure out, hey, what is the world going to need more of, and go fulfill that need. So this is, it's a cliche, but the Chinese word for problem is opportunity. I think the symbol is opportunity. And so I love how you talk about the disruption, not as a negative. You talk about the disruption as an opportunity, right?
1,000%.
Yeah.
You always have to, I've always had to look at those opportunities in my business for sure, especially me, because like I said, I'm in a very specific demographic that's already underserved.
Yeah.
And so we're always trying to find unique ways in to making more content that speaks to that audience and to get across to executives.
Yeah.
Part of the problem we have is there's just not a lot of Latino leadership in our business.
Yeah.
And the people that do call the shots, a lot of them aren't Latinos. And so it's getting across to them the need for this type of content. And aside from the obvious economic opportunity, because they know it, they see that the numbers don't lie with Hispanics. They're going to movies where they were at 2.5 times the rate than any other cohort out there. I
Yeah.
mean, they're 20% of the population, and they over-index across all platforms. But it's also showing them that there are these great, incredible stories to tell, and that there are these great filmmakers like the David Blue Garcias out there
Yeah.
that they'll take a chance on. And I'm really happy, and I bring that up again, not to pat ourselves on the back, but that things are changing in a good way. I don't
Yeah.
think David Blue Garcia would have had a shot 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I really don't.